我真的 Hi, okay. So the webinar today, 我们今天呢，可能就是跟之前的形式有些不一样，因为我想就是深入的跟大家讲一讲这个文书的事儿。好像我们是第一期还是第二期忘了，我们讨论过 Common App Essay。So 就是朋友们要是没有去看那个的话呢，可以就是再回去看一下录像啊。So if you haven't heard like the first webinar where I talked about like an overview of the Common App application, including the different essay prompts, I would encourage you to go back to that recording and listen to that or just like review that. Because I'm not gonna go over that again. I'm not going to, take the time to go through every single prompt. So this is gonna be more of a deep dive. We're gonna actually go into example essays and we're going to be analyzing them together. So can you show your hand if you're a student who's here, whether you're a junior, senior, if you're a high school student that's here, or if you're here together with your parents, can you just show your hand or maybe just put in the chat and just say here? Because this webinar is really more focused towards what students need to do. Hi Felix. Okay, great. Yeah. Um, so, this is more just like for you, right? I mean, if parents are here, you're welcome to stay and listen, and I would, definitely like be happy to answer any of your questions. But at the end of the day, like the student is the one who's going to be writing. So, if they're around, please grab them and have them come listen. But okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. And I'm not going to go through a lot of slides today, but I do want to just give you a quick introduction, and then we'll just dive directly into the essays. So, okay, sorry, one quick second. Okay, great. Okay, so just real quick for anybody who's here for the first time, just a quick introduction about myself. My name is Jennifer Zhao. Grew up in the US and I'm an independent education consultant. I've worked for more than 10 years on all kinds of different students, different essays. So I'm very happy to share my experience with you here today. Common App, this is just, it's all there. I'm not gonna go through a lot of this stuff. Just a quick review though, in terms of where the essay fits in terms of the whole application. A lot of times they do focus a lot on the main essay, but just a quick reminder that your essay really is one piece of your entire application, right? So your essay needs to also fit in with everything else that's there, whether it's your transcripts, extracurriculars, like letters of recommendation. Your essay cannot reflect a person who is completely different, right, than everything else that is in that's in your application. It can provide more information, elaborate on your activities, elaborate on your interests or your background. But just keep in mind that it needs to fit in with the rest of your application so that we get a clear picture of who the student is. If you have like if you're super into writing and love writing and want to be creative, that's fine. But just keep in mind that you don't want to go like way too much into the writing, such that it kind of detaches from the rest of your application. Okay, so that's just kind of one thing to keep in mind. Okay. And then what is the purpose, right? So we talked about this before. I'm not going to go too much into detail here, but basically, like our president said, it is basically a picture of who you are. What are your contribution, experiences, beliefs? The college gets to know you through your essay. Okay. Not gonna go again. I'm gonna go through all of this. Just a little bit of a review for the different prompts that are there for a common app, and then same very similar prompts from the coalition essay. This one I do want to talk a little about a little bit. This is I mean, every school is going to have a different rubric. This is kind of my personal rubric or way to judge whether an essay is needs work, like where it needs work. So we can think about it in terms of a ranking or a grade, if you will, for the different areas. And of course, like it's very subjective. It can be very subjective, but there is some objectivity to it as well, as you'll see when we go into the actual essay examples. So the first area is like really the most important part is the content, right? What are your ideas? What is your purpose? What are you trying to communicate? What is the thesis? Does it come together? Does it make sense, right? The second part is the level of detail. So this is very important because we don't want to just make generalizations, right? Like we want to give specific details from your life, from your experiences, that can sometimes be verified by your recommendation letters, that really give the like most accurate picture of who you are. Again, you can write a beautiful essay, you can ask ChatGPT, you can ask AI to write a beautiful essay, but it doesn't have your personal touch, it doesn't have your details, then that's not going to be telling the college who you are and giving that specific uniqueness that you want to communicate. The third part is the organization. You can think about it in a couple of different ways, and there's different ways to organize an essay. One way could be like a story, right? Kind of have a beginning, a middle, and an end, where you have, here's the beginning state. Then the middle is like where the conflict happens, and you talk about how maybe you overcame something or how you worked on something. And then at the end is kind of like a conclusion. So in that kind of a scenario, you would have an arc, right? Like a kind of like going from low to high and then back to low as a normal kind of a story arc. Other ways to organize essays, it doesn't have to be a story, right? There are other ways to organize it. You could have snapshots of different examples, and then they can be linked together by transitions, right? So that could be a different way. But no matter how you do it, there needs to be some way that it is organized, right? It needs to be communicating in a clear fashion, like what your purpose and your details are. You don't want to just have a bunch of different details, but they're not connected, right? We want to organize it in a way that makes sense to the reader and is memorable. The fourth thing is a voice and a tone. This is pretty important and it's a little bit subtle. Um, every student is gonna have a different voice, right? Every person has a different voice. If you just write like a very generic kind of third person view, that's not going to make a big impact, right? It's okay to have a little bit of casual language in there. It does not have to be very formal. It doesn't have to be fancy vocabulary. Um, and the tone is important because we want to hit a balance between being proud of your accomplishments, but not like overly egotistical, right? So there's some subtlety there that we can also evaluate. Creativity, so this is another very important one. We want to have an essay where it stands out, right? Like it needs to be unique and thoughtful in a way that is different than everybody, right? And that's always very hard to do. And if you're not used to creative writing or writing in this way, it can be very challenging. So one way to think about it, or one example to be creative, is thinking about uncommon connections, right? Maybe connecting a hobby to an academic subject, or connecting um, a piece of clothing or a memento, like a memory, to a personal background, right? So when we make those uncommon or unexpected or surprising connections, that's when what one way we can add some creativity and interest into our essays. And then the next one is the emotionally engaging, right? So that's kind of related to creativity, but we want to hit a emotion where the reader reads it and can be emotionally engaged. They can be invested in you as a person. It's not just like, I'm a good student, I did this and I did that, okay, you're a good student, that's great, but you want the admission officer to read this essay and say, wow, I really want to know this person more, right? I feel like this person would be a good friend to others, right? Or you might feel like you want to talk to this person, have a conversation with this person. Um, it doesn't have to be like a sob story, right? It doesn't have to be like, oh, poor me, this happened and feel sorry for me. Nobody wants to hear like read that kind of like a story. So even if it's something that you want to say that is very difficult or some challenge that you overcame, we can definitely talk about that. But and it can be emotionally engaging, but I would just say, don't also go over the edge and make it like all about the emotions or just having like way over the top. But there are ways to make it so that you can make a connection, basically, like a human connection with the reader so that they can really get to you on that level rather than just be like, okay, here's a list of accomplishments, right? And then lastly, and this probably, more simple, is just grammar and syntax. Just, we all have spell check now, and it's always good just to double check all of that. I put that at last because it's probably the least thing that's important, right? It is important, but it's not super important. So if you have like one or two like little grammar issues, most likely it's not going to damage your essay. It's much more important to focus on the first few things that we talked about. But as a college essay, you do want to use proper grammar. You do want to show that you proofread the essay, that you ironed out all the little, mistakes or details, and hopefully and highly recommended, have a couple of your teachers read it. And teachers are very good at catching all those mistakes. So we definitely do not want to submit an essay that like has not been read by a couple other people. And it just shows that you're paying attention and you value this essay enough to be able to iron out all those little mistakes. Okay, so here's the rubric. So I would say we're gonna go into some example essays now, and let's see, do we have more students here or do we just have one student? So if you're a parent, feel free to comment as well. I hope that this can be a more engaging webinar. It's not just me talking. Because as I said, like essays can be very subjective. They may not necessarily all, you might like something, but another person might not like it, right? So I think having that conversation, like having the dialogue of discussing the essays on a subjective level as well as an objective level will be helpful for everyone. Um, so, okay, so we'll go ahead and dive in. Okay, no other students? Only one student today? All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
Sarah is a student. My daughter Sarah is here.
Oh, good. Awesome. Yeah. Well, any students that are here, I highly, highly encourage you to participate, okay? Awesome. Okay, I'm going to stop this sharing and I'll share new. Oh, a lot more people came. Awesome. Yay. Oh, glad to see everybody here. Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm going to go to the essay examples. I also want to point out that on my website there's a link to all these examples and I can send the link out to you so you can let me see here. So I think this is a link that I can share. So you can, I'm going to put the link in the chat. Let's see. So everyone can go into this file. And these are just essays that are available online. Okay, these are all just open source essays that are online. So they're not anybody's like private essays that I'm sharing. But I think it serves as a good example for us to learn together. Okay, so some of these are kind of long. So I'm gonna give you some time just to read them, but I'm gonna just read like little bits and pieces of it. So first of all, for this one, it is a Common App essay. It talks about a personal crisis. It talks about something that is pretty emotional. And then it does talk about like some extracurricular activities as well. So my question, as you're reading this, is what do you rank this essay, right? Do you think it should be like in terms of content? Is it excellent? Is it good? Is it medium? Is it not good? In terms of uh, like details, like did it provide a lot of details for you? Do you make a emotional connection? I mean, any grammar issues, right? Is it creative? Does it surprise you? Does it keep you reading? Um, so I'll give you a couple minutes to read, and then we can, if you want to unmute, if anybody wants to unmute and just talk about it. Sorry, this is number 2. Um, we can do that, or you can also put your comments in the chat as well. Okay? And think about, and don't worry about offending anybody because these are all anonymous online essays. They're all real essays, but they're all essays that people put online, knowing that it was gonna be read by people. So, don't worry about like saying, oh, I'm gonna hurt somebody's feelings. You're not gonna hurt anybody's feelings. We're just going to be kind of like objectively, as much as possible, objectively ranking some of these essays. Imagine you're the admission officer, right? And you get this essay and you're like, okay, I want to get to know the student. What is this essay going to tell me about the student? So it's kind of the tables are turned today. The student is the admission officer, okay? And you can think about if you were the student or if you were a teacher for the student, what advice would you give the student? Like, would you say, this is great, submit it? Or would you say, hey, I think you should change this part or that part? So maybe think about it. I don't want to give away the answers. I mean, I have my personal opinions, but I'm also interested to hear what you all think about this one. And I think the purpose of our workshop today is really just to help you be more critical of writing so that you can be also looking at your own writing in a critical way, right? And not to say like critical in a bad sense, but just critical thinking so that we can improve, right? Okay. Any thoughts or questions on this one? So maybe we can start and say, what do you like about this essay? What do you think works well in this essay? And then we can say, what do you think can be improved in this essay? And parents, you're welcome to chime in. I'm not sure if a lot of the parents, if your students want you to read their essays, that's totally like up to your family. But imagine if this is your student and they say, hey, mom, like read this essay, tell me what you think. What would you say to that student? What do you like about it? And what do you think can be improved? So keep in mind too that like for admission officers, they're really like reading these essays in 2 or 3 minutes. Okay. So they're not going to be spending like 15 minutes to read one essay. That's very, very rare. Um, they're probably spending, 5 to 10 minutes to like review the entire application. So the essay is going to be that's like 2, 3 minutes. And if they're not interested, then that's it. 2, 3 minutes is pretty much all you get. So, I know it's kind of like a lot to read, but I'm training you. I'm training you to be an admission officer to see like from the other side of the desk, what does it feel like to be under that time pressure and reading about a student. Okay. Open for comments. Anybody want to share? Nobody? You can also type in the chat. Maybe this is easier. There's more telling than showing. Yeah. You can also type in the chat if you feel like you don't know what to say about it. Type in the chat like on the scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like this is the best thing you ever read. It's like what score would you give this essay out of 10? Okay, 5. Okay, good. Now I'm getting some responses. Okay, I give it a 6. Okay, good. Yeah. Okay. It's not keeping my attention very well. Okay, that's fair. Yeah. I would say 6 to 7. Okay, good. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. I mean, so, I don't know, anybody want to say anything before I start talking? I don't want to give it too much away. What do you like about this essay? Anybody have anything? Needs more detail. How the student overcome the problem. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's also very easy for us to look at like what's wrong with the essay, right? Sometimes it's hard to find what's good about it. So I will say that, a few things that are good about this essay is that it is very vulnerable. The student really opened up about their issues, and that's hard to do. So I do like that. I do agree with like the folks in the chat as well that this essay needs a lot more detail, right? It kind of talks about, yes, like they have an issue, but they didn't really say exactly like how they overcame the issue, right? And they kind of focus a lot on the problem. And then it just says, I made the resolute decision to take advantage of the place I live in, but not exactly like how or specifics on how that happened. It just says I kept myself busy with activities. Um, but then it kind of just talks a lot about all these activities, right? This looks like the activities list and not like why did you pick those activities? Like are those activities important to you? What did you learn from those activities, right? And it says, nonetheless, the instability gave me the opportunity to be mature, but it doesn't really say how that happened. Okay. Yeah, it needs more detail. Yeah. So, yeah, so I say, this definitely is not high on the detail list. The content may be okay. Um, and the emotional part, may be okay, like medium. But definitely needs a lot more detail. And then probably the creativity side, like I don't see it being very like interesting, like from a creativity point of view. Like it reads just like, okay, you had this problem and then, it's kind of expected. There's nothing like really super unexpected about this one. Okay, cool. Any other questions on this one? I want to go on to the next one. What would you say would improve? So we said details. What about one other thing that we could, if you were talking to the student, what would you improve? Adding, other than adding details, what would you do differently? Is ranking fair? What do you mean by that, Camilla?
Let me unmute myself.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like so what will you I remember you the under rubric you saying excellent, good, fair, and poor, right?
Mhm, mhm.
So will this be one of the articles, the essays, you mark as fair or good. I feel like it's between.
Yeah, I think for on the rubric, like I was thinking it's not like the overall essay is fair or good, but for each of those like categories, right? Like
Yeah.
for the content, like for creativity, for detail, for different things. So I think for this one, the detail is probably like fair or even poor, but the content may be higher. I would say the content is maybe good. The organization, I say, is probably fair because I don't see it being organized very clearly, right? So does that make sense?
Yeah. So as a if you are the you were the admission officer, right? Um,
Mhm.
so how will you rate it? It's like it's by score or scale 1 to 10. How is an essay being rated?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it really depends on the school because every school does it differently. Typically they will give like an overall score for the whole candidate because it takes into account like their grades and their tests and everything. So in terms of the essay, it could be like a maybe 1, 2, or 3.
Mm.
So maybe, one is like okay, 2 medium, 3 is like really good. They're not gonna give you like 1 out of 10, okay? It's not gonna be like, oh, do you get 95% or not 100% or 80%? It's not gonna be that specific. It's going to be just like, is it really great? Is it medium or is it not so good? So it's pretty rough, just because they actually are looking at the entire application and not only the essay. So there's actually two ways to look at the essays, right? One way, as we talk about, is from the admission officer's perspective. From their perspective, it's just like, is it like plus points, right? Is it like, wow, the student is so amazing, like I really want to meet this person, then you're gonna get plus points for that essay, right? Or it's just like, okay, it's an okay essay, like it fits, it's normal, like it's not super great, but it's gonna be okay. Or if it's like, wow, this student had really good grades and really good tests, but why is this essay so bad? So I think it's gonna be those three categories. But from a perspective of a counselor, right, of like somebody like me or a parent or a teacher, then we're going to be more detailed in giving feedback to the student, right? And that's why I give you those rubrics to look at is the content, the detail, the creativity, organization, because we want to help the student to make it be better. So we can be specific about how we can get this essay to be better, right? What is the areas that can be improved? So from a teacher's perspective, we're going to be looking at like more specifically like a ranking. The colleges, they're not going to be looking at all these things, right? They're just going to be like, do I love it? Is it okay? Or is it really bad? Because if it's really bad, then it can definitely hurt your application because you might have everything, super good. You might have excellent extracurricular activities. You might have great test scores and teacher recommendations even, but your essay is just looks like really bad, then that will definitely give you minus points. Does that
Okay.
answer the question?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, cool. Good. Okay. Yeah, so I think from today's workshop, we're kind of looking at it in both perspectives, right? And both kind of from an admission officer's perspective, but also from a teacher's perspective. And I think from the teacher's perspective is more important right now because that's like, how we want to help our student like make our essays better. So let's look at number 2. So this one is kind of an interesting opening. Unicorns, rainbows, pink, and glitter. Kind of catches your eye real quick. Can take a look at it. I don't know if folks have already started reading what we were talking earlier, but feel free to type in the chat what you think. Do you like it? Do you not like it? If you were the admission officer, would you say like, wow, I really want to know the student? Or are you like, no, this is kind of okay? Or like, no, this is really bad. Um, and if you have reasons, that's even better, right? Like, does it have really good detail? Does it have really good organization. And then if you find areas that can be improved, what are those areas? Like, how would you improve this essay? What is the overall theme, right? So that could be another thing to think about. If you could write a thesis statement for this essay, what would be the thesis statement? And I would encourage all students to think about that for your own essay as well. You should be able to have one sentence that tells everybody what you're trying to communicate through that essay. And then everything else really should wrap and point towards that one sentence. So for this essay, what do you think that the thesis statement would be? That would be another challenge I give you. What do you think about the detail? Does it have a lot of detail? Do you like the details? Or are the details helpful? Or are they not helpful? And then you can also put in the chat too, like if you're like, I'm not really sure, I'm not sure what's going on here, you can also just put in a number. So again, if you think this essay is a 10, that's awesome, like the best essay you ever read. Or do you think it's like medium, just okay, maybe it's 5, and then 1 or 2 is like, it's really bad. You can just put in a number as well. Remember, if you're a mission officer, you only have like maybe 2-3 minutes to read. So you might not be reading every word. You might be like skimming paragraphs and then you're like, oh, that's interesting, read a little bit more. And just to give you, hopefully not make you feel too bad about like spending so much time in writing and then maybe they're not reading it like all the words. There's like different levels, right? There's like kind of different evaluations. Usually the first admission officer, they read it kind of overall your whole application. And then once you move into kind of the committee level, which is where you have 3 to 5 admission officers looking at a bunch of essays, a bunch of applications, they're going to be reading it more carefully. So it's kind of like if you pass through that first level, sometimes like first 2 levels of evaluation, then more people are going to be having eyes on the essays. Usually you're going to have at least 2 admission officers read your essay. So that gives a little bit more objectivity as well. So don't feel too bad. It's not just like, oh yeah, I spent like months writing this essay and then they're only gonna read it, like not even all of it, So yes, like that's partially true. Like that's definitely the first round. Can everybody, but they get like, tens of thousands of applications. So it's not really possible to read every single thing, every single word. But if you have a good chance, right? If you have all the grades and all the recommendation letters and everything else looks good and the essay looks good, then you're going to move forward into the next round, maybe into a committee. Then more eyes and more detail and more scrutiny is going to be put on your whole application. So still it's very important to work really hard on your essay. But just know that like that first round, you might get a very short amount of time to make an impression. Okay, so I talked a lot again. Anybody have feedback on this essay?
I think this is organized pretty well, and I think just reading through it quickly, I get the the idea how what was the problem and her fought through the whole thing, and then she and then she even you just read the beginning and the middle a bit, and then to the end you get the idea what she was talking about. So I feel like it's to me it's looks a lot better than the other one. The first one I read through it. It's like, oh, what? Yeah. Just didn't catch, didn't feel like that much thought on the first one, but this one, it's like thinking a little deeper.
For sure. Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, definitely a lot more detail, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot more detail. And then I think the theme really comes out a lot more as well, right? Did anybody catch what their thesis or the theme is?
The film is about, the how the dilemma. You try to stand out, but also try to fit in, right? And
Mhm.
and she seems like okay, and through that personal experience in that summer, she I think she learned something about this. Not necessarily this resolve the dilemma between the two, but I feels like she learned something about it.
Mhm.
My internal battle between standing out and fitting in, right?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting topic, right, to pick, right? Because it's a little
yeah.
unexpected, right? It's not just like, oh, I did all these activities and, right? Like it talks about kind of the motivation a little bit, like behind it, not just like the surface stuff. It goes a little bit deeper.
Right.
Yeah. I do like that, even if you forgot and you didn't read any of this stuff and you just read the last line, right?
Right. You gotta get it.
And then I think they did a good job of like making it really clear like what the essay is about, right? And I think that's important, right? Because you can imagine you're the admission officer, you're reading like 1,000 of these, right? They're like, oh, what is this essay about? Oh, yeah, right here. Okay. You gotta make it easy for the admission officer to remember what you're talking about. Okay. So I think they did a very good job there as well. Yeah. Organization, definitely really good. A lot of detail, right? I do like that. Content was really good. They did bring in a lot of their actual experiences, right? Creative, I'd say so. I think it's pretty creative. Yeah. So, okay. So we agree this one maybe better. What would you say if you could improve? What would you improve about this one? You can think about it. I mean, all of these are available for you online, so you can go and take a look. But there's no perfect essay, right? Even though it's good, there are always gonna be better things that you can do to it. And that's sometimes students get a little bit caught up in that. So just a reminder that, you can always make it better. You can never make it perfect, okay? So at some point, you do want to just say, I'm done, okay? So sometimes that can be a barrier as well. Yeah, we keep changing it, and then it actually becomes worse than what it was before. So that's something to keep in mind, okay? Okay, number three, just keeping in an eye on the time. So everybody's gonna be expert admission officers after this workshop. So I'm just kidding. No. So after you read a few of these and you get an idea, right? Here's number three. This one is about animals and Jane Goodall and being fascinated by the natural world. What do you think about this one? Overall score, 1 to 10. What did you like about it? What do you not like about it? What do you think can be better? Organization, is it good? Does it have a lot of details? Does it have creative elements? Does it make an emotional connection to you? Um, what do you think about this one? I'd love to get some feedback from students if you're a student and you're reading. Um, That would be awesome. Or any parents who are helping their students. Also, I would give you another assignment or something to think about is, can you guess what prompt they're answering on the Common App, right? So I noticed that I didn't tell you up here, right, which prompt, which question they're responding to on the Common App. But all of these are Common App essays. See if you can identify what it is. I mean, one thing to notice is that it doesn't have to specifically answer the question, right? It doesn't have to be very explicit in answering the Common App question. However, it should respond in a way that shows who you are, right? So that's just a little mystery for you to think about if you can identify which prompt that they're responding to. Also notice the tone. The different essays have a little bit different tone. And think about what is the tone that you want for your essay, right? Do you want it to be a little bit more informal? Do you want it to be funny? Do you want it to be more serious? Do you want it to be um, more like impactful, like emotional and deep? Or do you want it to be light and do you want it to be like more friendly, right? So those are all different ways to think about it. What do you think about this tone compared to maybe the first two that we read? Do you like it? Um, does the tone tell you something about the student? Can you imagine the student actually saying these words out loud rather than reading it off a page, right? And that's also something I would encourage you to do as a student or, as a parent helping your student. Have your student read it out loud. If they have their essay draft, read it out loud and see if it makes sense, when you're reading it. And a lot of times you'll catch different parts that sound awkward because when I say voice, right, a student's voice, it literally should be their voice. You literally, as you're reading it, you should be able to imagine that it is the student saying those words. Okay. Stalled for a little bit more time for you to read. What do you guys think? Type in the chat 1 through 10. 10 being great, 1 being not so great. Or you can unmute and tell me what you think of it. 9, okay, great. Yeah, I see a 9. I see an 8. Does anybody want to share why they liked it? See some pretty high scores for this one. What do you think worked in this essay? What do you think made it give you that score? Anybody want to share? I have a lot more essays to go through. If you have a question, you can also ask. If you think this is not good, right? If you I mean, like I said earlier, everybody has a subjectivity, like a subjective view as well as an objective view. So, if you don't agree, if you think it's not a 9 or 8, that's totally fine. That's your opinion. That's why the whole application process can be kind of subjective as well. Feel free to share your thoughts or opinion. Okay. I do want to point out one thing here that I think that this student does very well is oftentimes in our essays, it's difficult to talk about another person, right? Like sometimes you want to say, oh, I worked on this with a partner, or I worked on this in a group. I think this person does it very well in that they pointed out this partner and they pointed out this partner's name. But the way that they wrote about this whole experience was not really all about the partner and also not saying like, okay, I did everything, right? This person did a good job in bringing in the partner as an important part of this essay or as an important part of their learning experience, but still making it like come out as a really positive thing for the writer. So I think they did a very good job of walking that balance. Yeah. How the past shaped her and how she keeps learning. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's another thing, right? Colleges are really looking for, do you have a motivation to learn on your own? Do you have curiosity? We call it like intellectual curiosity, right? Are you interested to learn things? And can you learn things on your own when you're not being forced to in school? That's definitely something that they're looking for in essays. And if you can provide evidence that you're doing that, then that's fantastic. Okay. Cool. Okay. If no other questions, we're going to move on to the next one. Okay. Example 4. Okay. This is a little bit shorter, talking about a injury. Okay. I don't want to give it away, but one thing that we did talk about in the previous webinar is that there are some topics that are like kind of cliche, right? And sports injury is one of them. So that should already give you a clue that maybe this is not like the best topic to pick. But what do you think? How did they do with this topic? Do you think they did a good job with this topic? Or do you think they did not do a good job? If you're the admission officer, what would be your opinion of this student? What do you think this essay tells you about the values of the student? What do you think about the word choices? Okay, I think somebody says is that negative or negat? What does that mean? Negative. Okay, why do you say negative? What do you mean by negative? Negative points? What makes it negative? Why negative? What would you improve to make it? Okay, yeah, not a good essay. I would agree. What would you improve to make it better, right? If you had the student and you saw this essay and they came and I said, "Oh, how can I make this essay better?" What would you tell them? Would you say, maybe change some stuff? Do you think this essay has a lot of content? Does this essay tell you what kind of person this student is and their experiences? I mean, other than the injury, right? I think unfortunately, the student kind of neglected to talk about like a lot of other things that maybe they did, right? It kind of focused a lot on this issue, but it kind of did not really talk too much about other things, right? So, you know, okay. I did want to put in a kind of example here as sort of like, something that you don't want to do. Okay. Um, But definitely, people get this kind of essays. The colleges will see this kinds of essays, and even if the student has fantastic scores and all this other great stuff, but you get an essay like this, and you're like, am I even looking at the same student, right? Okay, so let's move on. Getting close to the hour. I'm just getting just aware of the time here. I do want to show just like an example from the UCs as well. The UC essays are going to be shorter. There's 350 words maximum, so they're going to be shorter. This one is about leadership. And then I have a couple other examples towards the end, so feel free to scroll past. If you're not interested in UC, don't worry. There's a few more essays on the bottom that you can start reading, and we can talk about it just in a couple minutes. The UC essays are going to be a little bit different compared to the Common App. They are shorter, like that's one thing. And another thing is that the UCs are really going to be looking for more tangible examples and less creative, right? First of all, you have less space to be creative, but I will always advise for UC essays, you just kind of get to the point faster and try not to, tell the story too much. You can tell the story, but it has to really focus on answering the question. What do you guys think about this UC essay? And also give it just your own thoughts. Like, do you think it's great? Do you think it's okay? Or do you think it's not good? Or you can use our number scale as we were doing before, 10, 5, or 1. What do you think? It kind of focuses on one specific experience, right? Or one specific story. Do you think they successfully made that connection with this one story? Or do you think they could have pulled in other things or other aspects from their life? Keep in mind that UCs do have the 4 essays, so this is only 1 out of the 4. Okay. Very easy to read. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So do you think very easy to read is a good thing, or do you think that's a bad thing for you? Easy to read can be a good thing, right? Yeah. Kind of flows quickly. Okay, you think it's a good thing? That's good. Yeah. It can be a good thing, but it can also be like if the language is too easy or the language is too casual, it can also be not good, right? So you kind of have to strike that balance, being easy to read, but also showing that there is some intellectual thought and depth into the candidate as well, right? Okay, so real quickly, give it a score. What do you think? Good, medium, bad? Pretty good. Okay. Think pretty good. 7 to 8. If you can tie this experience beyond mowing, it'll be better. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, that's a great feedback, right? How can you make this essay better? Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. I mean, I think it's an okay essay. It's not terrible. But there's definitely things that this person can do better, right? It kind of really focused on one specific story. And personally, I feel like it probably can be told in shorter words than what happened here, right? The story probably could have been shorter. and still get the point across, but connect it to a little bit bigger topic, right? Connect it to something that's a little bit more impactful, or a little bit more deeply personal than that just like one occurrence. Okay. That'll probably be my feedback. Does it give a lot of detail? It kind of does, but not really, right? I mean, it does talk about the story a lot, but it doesn't give a lot of detail about um like, what they really got out of the experience, or how are they gonna take that into future, or what exactly happened. So, like I'd say I would probably personally give it like maybe like a 6 or a 7. It does the job. It answers the question, but I think it definitely can be better um in just adding some more depth into the candidate. Okay. And how we do that is looking at uh, the other things that you did, right? Like the other activities or classes or hopes and dreams, right? All the things, and link it to something that's a little bit bigger picture. Okay. Cool. Okay. Not gonna spend too much time because we're already at 8 o'clock. I think you guys can read this on your own. This is one about medical field. Okay. Some people, a lot of people write about like a medical field related topic. So that's just an example for you there to think about. What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? And then here's some supplementals to look at. So this is one about the letter to roommate. This is a standard one that is in the Stanford application. Is like basically writing a letter to your future roommate. And this one is about giving a lot of details about this person, right? You can think about what works in this essay. What do you like about it? Is it creative? Is it fun? And this type of essay is very different than the Common App, right? This is your addressing your roommate. So it can be even more casual. Like it really should be probably more casual than your regular, Common App essay, or like a why major essay or a why college essay. This really shows like what kind of roommate, what kind of friend are you going to be? So you guys can think about what worked in this essay. And then having this kind of bullets is a little bit risky, right? Do you think you would think of this, like to do a bullet points? You can. There's nothing that says you can't do that. Okay. So there's a lot of detail here. Do you think it works? Okay. Now we'll go down to the next one. This is a Y major one. This is for UIUC, for Illinois, but there's a lot of colleges that have a supplemental essay that talks about why major, like why do you want to major in this topic, right? And for Illinois, they have this thing is kind of a two-part why major essay. They have like, what are some experiences that led you to this major? And then it asks, what do you want to do in the future with this major? So we have both examples here. And you can think about, for this essay, what was good and what can be improved. Okay. I'm kind of quickly going through this because we're kind of at 8 o'clock already, but I'm happy to chat more and we can talk more details and answer questions as well. The last one here I have is a why college essay. This is also very common. This particular one is for UPenn, but many colleges will have, why do you want to come to our school? What makes our school special, right? Especially if you're applying early decision, this is a very important answer or a question to answer, right? Are you so sure that this is the perfect school for you, right? So this is an essay for UPenn, a kind of example of talking about their own interest in a certain topic, what they want to explore at UPenn. And then it also talks a little bit about just like the city, right? And I also think that it's important to not only take into account like the academics part of the college, but also the student life, whether it's extracurriculars or the city, the setting that the campus is in, all of those things, and why that is makes it a good place for you. Okay. So, okay, let me check the comments. No comments. Okay. Cool. Any questions or thoughts about the supplementals? I know we kind of went through them really quickly. More than happy to discuss if you have thoughts about any of them, what you like, what you didn't like, or what you think could be improved about any of them. Or are you just reading? It's a lot of reading, isn't it? Okay.
Jen, I think the last two, like a white major, white college, I dropped those down because I think that will help my girl to start thinking. She's in 10th grade,
Yeah.
and I have tried to make her join me, and she was working on her homework. Is that just send me the recording? I will listen to it.
No
But that's
problem.
like, yeah, but those two, those at least even asked her to write, try to write an essay at this point we help her. I think I put it down as for the coming summer or the holiday break. If she doesn't have other plans, she probably can start working on those. That I try to make her start thinking
Mhm.
what majors you want to go in, what's her interest, that like that. But it's hard for a 15-year-old.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I do think that like 10th grade is pretty early for writing this essays, but I do think it's a good idea to read some examples, right? So you can share this document and she can read the examples. I was like, okay, here's some idea for like what people write. I think that's fine. I don't think, I mean, if the student is not clear on what they want to do or what colleges they want to apply to, I don't think it really is helpful to start working on writing the essays yet because you kind of want to know at least general direction before you start writing. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, I thought that can go the other way around, like start writing something, not like it's not going to be perfect. I
Uh-huh.
definitely need a lot more work get by the time she needs to, get serious into it. But it's like
Yeah.
start writing, just start writing something
Mhm.
about her, why, what college she want to go in or what major
Mhm.
she will do that might help her start thinking and paying attention
Mhm.
to those areas.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on the student, like it might be intimidating to start writing without
Mm.
knowing like the purpose, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
but I mean, if it's
Probably.
helpful to write, just like if a student, especially if they like writing and they just like to write creatively and just, hey, I'm gonna write this and nobody else has to read it, kind of almost like just a self give yourself homework kind of thing, right? Or like even just like thinking about writing it as a diary entry or like a journal entry so that it's not like pressure like, oh my gosh, I have to write something perfect or something really beautiful. I think if you kind of say like, hey, just do some free writing and brainstorming and rough draft, kind of stuff, then that will help. If that's helpful, then just make it really low key, I would say. Don't make it like, oh my gosh, you have to start writing because we don't have a lot of time. I think that might not help.
Right.
Um, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I would just say, I think it's a good idea definitely to start thinking early, but I also don't want you to waste a lot of time like writing a lot and then getting frustrated because then you're not sure what the direction is. Does that make sense?
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So, I kind of depend on the student, but you might want to at
mm,
least kind of get a little bit more of a direction and then get serious. Like before you get to serious writing, like you probably want to have a little bit more clear direction.
Right. And another thing that I think is just something I see writing is, yeah, will benefit your whole life. And you really make a huge difference in your career. You feel, your prospect for your career, right? And then there's something I see, it's like among all the subjects and they learning at school, doing at school, I think writing is, I see it as the most important skill a student can get, and it will have a big impact on or shape their future. So the other day when we have the open house, I went to my son's grade eighth open house event. I asked the school whether they have a writing club and helping students doing writing. I found out Shan, with the school district we are in, is Shan, right? And they don't even have it anymore. Then wow,
Okay.
oh
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I
So
totally agree with you. I think writing is super important. I mean, nowadays, of course, a lot of people can put things into ChatGPT, they can do the writing for you. But being able to clearly communicate who you are, right, what your point is, and make a connection with your reader is still gonna be super important, like no matter what. Like even if AI, comes out with some kind of beautiful writing, but it's not going to be connecting with other people on a human, one-to-one level, then that's still not like really the purpose, right? The purpose is when you have writing is kind of like you're communicating directly to the reader. So it's I do agree with you. I think it's super important. I mean, like a sh little plug is like I did do a writing workshop over the summer with the New York Times writing contest, and that was a lot of fun. So I'm thinking if there are students who are interested, we might do something like that again.
no,
So
sounds good. Thank you.
definitely.
We did sign up for the SUNY one. It didn't work out. That was a couple of years ago. They didn't like it. They didn't think that they learned anything from that, from the SUNY one. And so, but yeah, I would definitely consider if you have,
Awesome.
yeah, because
Yeah,
I
there might
know
be
how
some
you,
opportunities coming up. So yeah, we
okay,
make it a
yeah.
lot of fun. We got some good feedback. So yeah, so that's something for anybody to consider. But right now is kind of like really busy season because right now I'm working with a lot of students on their applications. So we might wait a little bit until it gets a little bit less busy for me. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, keep me informed of that when you have, the opportunity come up. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, any other questions from anybody else?
Hi, Jennifer. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So first, I mean, this is really helpful information, and I think in one of the essays talking about the sports injury.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
you mentioned those topics are not very basic attractive to AOs,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's kind of maybe like too common or too many people talk about it. But can you share like if you know like some other topic or other area like the student probably want to stay away from it in the essay?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, not to say like you cannot write about it, okay? So
Right,
it's
yeah.
not like
Just
don't write about
I
it.
know you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
always craft it differently, but just
Yes,
get me
I
some
think
idea about
it's
this.
yes, it kind of like makes it harder to stand out, right?
Yeah.
Because if you make an essay about like sports injury or whatever, and it's super good, okay, maybe it still works, but it's just harder because there's,
Hmm.
like just so many people writing about that. Let me actually stop sharing. I can show you my slide. I have a slide of do's and don'ts.
Oh, good.
Um, Okay. Well, I mean, so, I should say cliches, but so another really common one that I know a lot of people want to write about, and every year I have so many students who want to write about is piano. Okay, like piano, so many people want to write about piano, or they want to write about like violin or like an instrument that is like pretty common. I would say don't do that unless you're super super sure, or you can make a special connection, to something. But I say definitely, piano is another one. Um, and it's not to say that you can't write about music, in general, but you kind of have to be try to think about it specific, right? If you're gonna write about music, maybe you write about like a specific kind of music, maybe like jazz, you know, or a specific composer. Go like really deep into the detail or the like the niche, right? Don't just be like, okay, I played piano and it was hard and then I overcame it. You know, that's just very, very common for a lot of people to write about. Academics is another one, right? You might say, okay, I did bad in this class, or math was really hard for me, and then I worked really hard, and then I overcame it. Again, you know, every year there's going to be hundreds and thousands of essays that are just about like academic subjects, you know, whether it's like you really like that subject and you love that subject so much, you know, that's great, but it's just very dry, like in terms of just that one subject. You have to kind of bring in other things, and it would be much richer experience for the reader to learn about you as a person, rather than just only say like, oh, I just love this one subject so much, right? Kind of like complaining is another one I have here. It's like, oh, this terrible thing happened to me, or like, oh, like, you know, I was discriminated against, or like I had this terrible family circumstance, whether it's like an illness or, you know, special circumstance. If you just say like these bad things happen to you, but you don't say like what you did about it or how did you grow, or, you know, like you just want somebody to feel bad for you, then that's really not good, right? That's not going to be helpful. I mean, yes, like a lot of students have very difficult circumstances and you can certainly write about it. But don't write about it in a way that just like, oh, poor me, you know, like it's, you know, like feel bad for me and let me into your school, you know, that's not going to work. Okay. And then like just like really controversial topics, like you don't, the essay is not a place to exert your opinion, right? Like whether it's about like I'm right about, you know, if you talk about whatever, you know, like a controversial topic, right? Um, Either this way is right or that way is right, and why I think this way is right. That's really not the place to argue that. First of all, you know, like there's really like a lot of times no absolute right or wrong. That's why it's controversial. The essay should really focus on you as a person, why you're special, or like your own path and your own journey. And it's not a place to say like, oh, I think it should be like this, or I believe this is right because of this, you know. If anything, you know, there is that one topic in the Common App where it says, tell us about a time where you disagreed with somebody and how did you resolve it, right? If you talk about a time that you had a conflict or a disagreement with somebody and how you resolved it, then we want to hear about like who you are as a person in terms of dealing with other people who don't agree with you, right? How good are you in terms of your maturity and conflict resolution? That's more important than just saying like I'm right, you know, like and they're wrong, you know. So that's definitely something to avoid as well. So does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, and then just a couple other things here, just like don't judge your writing too early. A lot of students will just write something and they're like, oh, it's really bad. And they're very overly critical and they're like, oh, just delete everything and start over. So sometimes that's just wasting time. Don't delete your work. My one rule is that do not delete your work. There is infinite space, almost infinite space, right? You have on Google Docs, whatever it is, save all your work and don't delete it until you have somebody read it or help you with it. Or you just come back the next day and read it again because you don't want to waste your work by deleting everything. Also copying others, right? You don't want to use AI. You don't want to, well, when I say you don't want to use AI, don't just tell ChatGPT to write your essay for you. But I think it's okay to brainstorm, right? Say, hey, I'm thinking about these topics. Ask ChatGPT, what are some topics that I could focus on? Or, you know, I think that is a good tool. And that is definitely something that more people are using, and a lot of it's going to become more prominent. So, like, in terms of using that, obviously as a student, you have to be very careful on how you use it, but definitely do not just say, write an opening paragraph for me or write a closing paragraph for me, okay? Or put in a few sentences and say, make these sentences better, don't do that. And don't read too many, like, I know we just did this, right? Like we read some example essays, but don't just read a bunch of other people's essays and be like, oh, I really like that part of that essay, and I really like that part of that essay, and hey, I'll just take this part or make it my own idea or twist it. Don't do too much of that. I mean, yeah, of course, like it's great to read other people's work and get inspired, but your essay, the thing that makes it special is that it's unique, right? You can't just say, okay, I'm gonna use other people's this part or that part and make it all like a hodgepodge. Then it comes out together, it's not you. It's just like a mixture of many other people. So don't do that. It's very obvious when that happens. It's very, pretty like whether it's AI or whether it's your, using pieces of other people's work, it's actually very obvious to see that in an essay. So just avoid doing that and just do the work and come up with your own essay. Okay, those are some don'ts. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I want to ask a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I want to ask about the supplemental essay.
Yeah.
For the main essay, the personal statement, I think we have a good idea what is a good one, like those emotional engagement, like more showing and then telling. Yeah, voice and tone. But for supplemental, what's the criteria? Is it more like you should get to the straight to the point and be more specific, details about the school, about the like those the why major, why college. I assume those are two good examples. So what is generally considered as a good supplemental essay? That's my question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, that's also why I put those examples in there for you. The supplementals are usually shorter. Sometimes they're long, but usually shorter. So you definitely have less space to be creative, right? So you don't have as much space to kind of talk about like, oh, like all the backstory and all the, fun like parts in it. It's definitely still good to insert as much of your personality as possible. But I would agree that like you do want to get to the point. You do want, if it's a Y major essay or if it's a Y college essay, you want that essay. Usually they're like 200 words, maybe 300 words. You want that essay to be packed full with all the content, right? So probably, if we're looking at this rubric here, if we said this is a supplemental rubric, I will say the content is probably the most important thing here, right? And the other things are going to be much less important, right? You don't have to be as creative. You don't have to be as emotionally engaging. Probably organization is still important. Detail is still important, right? You want to give enough detail to show that, okay, I've considered this major enough that I know what I'm talking about, right? That I'm pretty sure I want this major. Or like I've considered this college enough to know that these are the courses that I'm interested in. These are the activities I'm interested in, right? So you want to have that detail for sure. The organization is going to be easier because it's usually a shorter essay. So you're probably going to have just like 2 paragraphs, maybe 3 at the maximum. The tone and voice, yeah, you definitely still want to sound like yourself. I would say whatever tone and voice that you're using for your Common App, I would keep it about the same. Okay, I wouldn't make it like a totally different tone or a totally different voice. We want to hear that it's still the same person talking. But yeah, definitely down here, the creativity and the emotional part, it's gonna be less important for most of these colleges. They just want to know like kind of more detail and content. Like those are gonna be much more important. And just a side note in terms of the Y major essay, if your student is not 100% sure on their major, it's okay. You don't have to say in your essay that I'm like 100% sure I want to do this major. Okay, you don't have to say that. You can just say I'm interested in this topics or this major, and here's my reasons for interest, and these are things that attract me to it, right? You don't have to commit in your essay and say, oh, I know I want to do this for the rest of my life. Okay, even if you said that, probably the college is not going to believe you, and it's probably not going to come across as very mature, because most students, even if they know they want to do it, there's still a pretty high chance that they would change their mind, so I would kind of avoid saying that, I want to do this major for sure and this is like the best thing ever. You don't have to use those kind of language. You can just say, these are the reasons I'm interested, these are the things I'm interested in right now, and that's how it leads me into these topics and I want to pursue in the future. Okay. In terms of the college though, you probably do want to say, that this is your top choice. Okay, especially if you're doing early decision, the college wants to know that you did enough research, whether it's visiting the school, whether it's reading about the website or going to their webinars or whatever, their events or meeting their admission officers. Sometimes they come in college fairs, right? So whatever contact that you have made with the college, you can mention that, right? You can say that on this campus I saw this, right? So you can say those things, and that really goes into the level of detail. And then content and purpose, right? That's probably the most important thing. What the college is trying to evaluate is, are you going to be a good fit for the school, right? Are you going to come here? Are you going to take advantage of all the resources that are here? The last thing that you want is to have a student come to the school and hate it, right? Or just don't like it, or just are not engaging, in the different activities that are there. They want students who are willing to be a part of the campus and be a part of that community. So you really want to show that you're ready to jump in and do that. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, no problem. Okay. Any last questions? Okay. Coming up to 8:30. So if no other questions, I'll just say thank you for everybody's time. I think you all have my contact. You have the WeChat group that we're in with VCA. So if anybody have any questions, feel free to contact me there. I think we have another one. President 会长还在吗？好像 maybe like in 2 weeks, I think we have our last one. So you're welcome to come to that one. I think it's October.
Yeah, I think it's the beginning of October.
Yeah, I think beginning October. I think we're talking about activity list, right?
Yeah, need to.
Something like that. I forgot.
Yeah.
Like extracurricular list or something like that.
Yeah, let me check back.
I'm gonna stop share here. Yeah, and
okay, let me see.
any student who has an essay draft and you want me to read it and you want me to give you some feedback, I'm more than happy to do that. Okay, so I'll just put my email.
Next time is October the 4th. It's about extracurricular section.
Yeah, extracurricular section, how we're gonna do that for the Common App.
Yeah,
But I think that applies to
resume.
other applications too. Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you. 感谢会长 VCA for hosting. I hope everybody, yeah, has a good night.
谢谢 thank you.
Thank you, Jen. It's
Jennifer.
very helpful.
Hey, no
Yeah.
problem. Yeah, you guys, let me know if you have any other questions, but have a good night. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Yeah. Good night. Good night, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for coming. 这个今天这个讨论很热烈，非常好啊，非常有气氛。好的大家谢谢大家了。好的，今天晚上就先到这。好，再见，拜拜。